Hey there, just a heads up, but this video will be a little different from my normal stuff. Hylics isn't the kind of game I'd normally be talking about, and I can't review it in really the same way. This video will be more about trying to understand my own experience and perspective of the game. I totally understand that kind of analysis isn't everyone's cup of tea. Personally, I have to be in the right mood for it myself. Perchance, you would enjoy my ramblings about Soul Reaver or Drake and more. If you want to stick around though, welcome. Hylics is a game that could be most easily classified as a JRPG.
Did you miss us? No.
It was made by one man, Mason Lindroth. He went to school for traditional arts, film, printmaking, and figure drawing according to the Wikipedia page. And before Hylics, he had mostly worked on games as part of game jams like Ludum Dare. They're a lot of fun, you should try one out sometime if you are interested. Hylics was developed over 2 years and released to apparently great success. Nice job, Mason. This success is what made me decide to give it a shot when I stumbled across it during a Steam sale. A 98% positive rating out of like 4,600 reviews has gotta mean something, right? Well, I'm not gonna bury the lead here. I didn't like Hylics very much. In fact, I thought it was kinda terrible. That's it, video's over. Well, that should have been it. I've walked away from hundreds of other games over the years, but this rating, kind of nagged at me. If that many people liked this game enough to not only play it, but review it, then maybe I'm missing something. So I sat down and gave it a big think, which really means I went back to work and then I made dinner and did all that other shit, because who's got time to sit around and think, right? I wanted to figure out what I didn't like about this game, because when I sit down to try to play something like Call of Duty 247 or Far Cry 6, my feelings on them are right around room temperature. I don't hate these games, they're just boring. Since I only have so much time on this terrible planet, I don't want to spend much of it on something that doesn't make me feel anything. On the other hand, when I've tried to play a game that is really poorly made, it's understandable that it wouldn't be fun, but I still don't hate the game. At most, I would regret purchasing it, but that's not what I felt for Hylics. The best word I could find to describe my immediate reaction to Hylics is repulsed. And that's a weird feeling to have about a video game that isn't really doing anything wrong. The art style itself is different from almost anything I've played, but I knew that going in. It's all over the box, or the Steam page, I guess. I'm not really a fan of surrealist or abstract art, but it doesn't bother me. Overall, the game functions fine. You can walk in 4 directions, and you only really have 2 buttons to press. The music is not something I enjoy, but I don't actually get to listen to music in most games anyway. There's barely any story to be found. Most of the NPCs speak in randomly generated nonsense, and the player is expected to just figure it out for themselves. After thinking through all of that for a while, though, I think I sort of figured out why I disliked Hylics so much. You see, it's really not that hard to boot up something like RPG Maker or Game Maker and make your first game. Once you've done that a few times, it's natural to copy something else that works well and at least gets some of it right. But here's the thing, I don't think Hylics wanted to get any of it right. Again, it's right there on the box. The game is supposed to be surreal art. Now, I am neither interested in or qualified to teach an art class, but for the sake of what we're talking about here, we'll say that surrealism, in the broad sense, is focused on bringing to life the feelings that you might experience in a dream. Part of the way it does this is through the use of the unexpected, parts that don't make sense or that don't really go together logically. A man with a moon for a head finding a burrito in his toilet is nonsense in the waking world, but this dream logic lives comfortably in a piece of surrealist art. That same logic itself extends to almost every part of this game. There's a fairly famous quote attributed to Pablo Picasso that says something like, "Learn the rules like a pro so you can break them like an artist." Remember, Mr. Lindroth is a traditional artist with a traditional artistic background. He is beholden to no shareholders, so he can do the one thing that no established game studio really gets to do, and that is make a game without mass appeal, or even make a game with the intention of an unpleasant experience if he wanted. I'm not saying that was his intention here, but I guess it doesn't really matter. Apparently, not content to just make a game with a surrealist art direction, Hylics incorporates that core of surrealism into every orifice it could find. The equipment, the menus, the stats, the storytelling, the dialogue, the way you get your companions, even the way you become stronger by killing enemies. None of it works the way it should if you're used to other games. And that had to be intentional, right? I don't actually know, and unfortunately the author is dead anyway. Not Mason, I assume he's fine. The author is dead is a reference to a philosophical essay by Roland Barthes. He's French, so I'm not really sure how to say that. I wonder how he's doing. Oh damn, the author of The Death of the Author is dead. But the gist of the essay is that once an author, or a game developer in this case, releases their work to the public, its meaning is entirely up to the audience. It doesn't matter what they intended the viewer to think or feel, only what the player in this case takes away from their own experience of the work. See, I can be artsy-fartsy too. For me, Hylics lives in whatever the gameplay equivalent to the uncanny valley is. It's close to something I know and that I'm used to, but just slightly different. It's just a little unsettling. Some might even call it surreal. I didn't like it because it doesn't make sense. Games have rules. Number goes up, story goes forward, brain release dopamine. But Hylics isn't really a game in any traditional sense. It's a piece of art, and one of the mixed media used to make that piece of art happens to be video game, like paint or clay. It's the most art game I've ever played. When I started to understand this, and I kept pushing through the game, I felt like a little kid again. Not that joy of discovery, just the confusion. Like I was playing Zelda on my mom's Nintendo for the first time. I didn't know shit, I was just wandering around, doing stuff, and eventually I win and the game ends. I am left confused and tired, like I just woke up from a fever dream. Maybe that's the point? I can tell you with complete certainty that it is a feeling that no other game has ever given me. Does it make it a good game? No, at least not in the traditional sense, but I don't think it set out to be like those games. I don't think it wanted to be in the same lane as Final Fantasy or Lunar, but I do think that it is effective as a piece of surrealist art. I'm afraid I might even slowly be starting to like the game. For a few bucks on Steam or itch, you can try it out for yourself. It's like walking through Mason Lindroth's art gallery, and it will be living in the back of my head for a long time, whether I want it to or not.